Tonight, as the city breathed under a blanket of soft rain, and the streetlights shimmered like tiny candles in a world that often forgets tenderness, a man named Adrian Cole walked out of his grand corporate building, carrying something heavier than the briefcase in his hand. He carried the silent weight of questions, doubts, and the constant search for meaning that success alone could never answer. People saw him as a powerful CEO, as a man who made big decisions and shaped the future of a massive retail empire. But deep inside, he was just another human being searching for something real, something true, something that touched the soul. And on this quiet, rain-washed night, destiny began to unfold a chapter he never expected, a chapter that would change not only his life but the life of someone silently praying for a miracle. For days, small reports had reached his office, confusing sales numbers, inconsistent shifts, employee complaints mixed with customer praise. Adrian disliked judging from behind a desk. He believed that truth only revealed itself when you walked into it. So instead of calling managers or sending auditors, he decided to do something he hadn't done in years. He removed his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and changed into simple clothes that made him look like any other ordinary man. Then he stepped outside without his chauffeur, without any staff, without any security. Just himself, alone, walking into the night, searching for answers that spreadsheets could never show. He walked toward one of his stores on the outer edge of the city, a store he had never visited personally. From the outside, it looked warm, welcoming, safe, a small light inside the large world of his business. But as he pushed open the glass door, he stepped into a silence that felt strange, not peaceful but heavy, like the quiet that lives inside people who are hurting. His eyes scanned the store. Only one employee stood at the counter, a young woman with tired eyes and a face that looked like it had forgotten what rest felt like. Her name tag said Lena. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, not out of carelessness but exhaustion. And every few seconds, she blinked a little too long, as if trying to hold back tears. Adrian pretended to browse the aisles, quietly watching. Something about her movements told him more than any report could. Her hands trembled slightly as she arranged items. Her shoulders drooped like she was carrying a burden far heavier than the boxes she lifted. Her breaths were shallow, quick, the kind of breathing people use when they're trying not to cry. He picked up a few items to create a natural reason to approach her. But the moment he placed them on the counter, her mask slipped for just 1 second, not intentionally but because pain has a way of leaking through even the strongest walls. Her eyes shimmered with tears she fought fiercely to hide. She whispered a soft greeting, her voice barely holding together. And as she scanned the items, her hands shook so much that the bottle slipped and hit the counter with a soft thud. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," she said, apologizing as if she had committed a crime. Adrian noticed she wasn't just tired, she was breaking. Gently, he asked, "Are you all right?" 2 simple words. But for her, they broke the last wall she had. Her lips trembled, her throat tightened. And then a tear slid down her cheek before she could stop it. She quickly wiped it away, embarrassed, whispering, "I'm fine, just a long day." But it wasn't just a long day. It was a long life. A life full of battles no one else could see. "Take your time," Adrian said softly. His voice was calm, warm, safe, 3 things she hadn't felt in a long time. She tried to continue scanning, but her hands wouldn't cooperate. Finally, almost involuntarily, she whispered, "I'm really sorry, I'm going through something." She looked away as if ashamed of her own vulnerability, but her pain poured out faster than she could hold it back. For a moment, the busy CEO, who rarely had time to pause, stood silently watching a human heart unfold right before him. He could feel something shifting inside him, a gentle pull, a spiritual nudge, like God was whispering, "Pay attention." He invited her to sit for a moment, and after hesitating, half scared, half exhausted, she agreed. They sat on a small bench meant for customers, a place where stories were never meant to be told, yet tonight, her entire world was about to spill into that small corner. Voice trembling, eyes swollen with exhaustion, she finally shared the truth she had carried alone for far too long. Her mother was in the hospital, fighting stage 4 cancer. Her younger brother was still in school. Her father had passed away years ago. She worked 2 shifts, sometimes 3, just to afford medicine. She often skipped meals so her mother could eat. She barely slept, surviving on hope and silent prayers. And earlier that evening, she had received a message that her mother's condition had worsened. But she couldn't leave her shift. Because if she lost this job, she lost the ability to keep her mother alive. Her voice cracked with each sentence, her heart pouring out in pieces. Adrian felt every word like a weight placed gently on his own chest. She wasn't asking for pity. She wasn't complaining. She was simply surviving. "I didn't tell the manager," she whispered. "I need this job. I don't want anyone to think I'm weak. I just pray, every day, that God sees my struggle." And those words, simple, trembling, full of raw faith, touched something deep inside Adrian's soul. The CEO who came to inspect a store now found himself standing in front of a woman whose strength humbled him. A woman who had nothing yet carried everything with courage. A woman who cried in silence but still believed that God was watching. The rain outside continued to fall softly, as if the sky itself bowed to her perseverance. Something inside Adrian shifted, not emotionally, but spiritually. It felt as if God himself had led him into that store, at that exact hour, to witness a truth far more important than any report. And with a calm breath, he made a decision that would change their lives. He stood slowly and looked into her weary eyes. "Lena," he said gently, "I want you to take the rest of the night off." Fear immediately flashed in her eyes. "Sir, I can't. If I leave early, I'll lose my job." He reached into his pocket and handed her a business card. She looked at it, then looked again. Her breath caught in her throat. Her hands froze. You're Adrian Cole," she whispered, stunned. "You're the CEO." He nodded softly. She stood up instantly, panic rushing through her voice. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cry. I wasn't complaining. I promise I work hard." He raised a hand gently, stopping her. "Lena," he said with warmth, "you did nothing wrong. In fact, you showed more strength than you know." Her eyes filled again, but this time not from pain. This time from shock, fear, and the overwhelming realization that she had been pouring her heart out to the man who had the power to change everything. And that is exactly what he did. "You're not losing your job," he said firmly. "You're getting paid leave. Your mother's medical bills will be taken care of. And when you return, you will have a flexible schedule so you can take care of your family." Lena stared at him, unable to breathe for a moment. Then tears poured down, soft and uncontrollable. Why would you help me?" she whispered. Adrian's answer came, from the deepest part of his soul. "Because God led me here tonight. And because no one fighting alone should ever feel unseen." The store seemed to glow brighter at that moment, as if heaven itself was nodding in agreement. He drove her to the hospital, listening to her stories about her mother, the woman who had fought life bravely, loved deeply, and prayed constantly for her children's future. When they entered the dim hospital room, Lena's mother opened her eyes and smiled, a fragile, warm, knowing smile. She held Adrian's hand with surprising strength and whispered a blessing that felt like a sacred gift. "Kindness comes from the soul, and God rewards those who lift others when they cannot stand alone." Her words sank into Adrian's heart like seeds of light. Days turned into weeks. Adrian visited often. He ensured the best treatment. He supported the family quietly, humbly, without wanting anything in return. And slowly, Lena began to stand a little taller. Her eyes grew brighter. Her hope grew stronger. Her faith, which had carried her through storms, now blossomed with gratitude. Months later, she returned to work, not as a cashier struggling to survive, but as an assistant manager, confident, smiling, and full of life. Adrian watched from afar with quiet pride, knowing that destiny had used him as a vessel that night. Used him to answer a prayer. Used him to rediscover his own humanity. Because sometimes, God places us exactly where we are needed, not to check numbers, not to judge performance, but to remind us that every human heart carries invisible battles, and every soul deserves compassion. And sometimes, the miracle someone is praying for, is hidden inside the kindness we choose to give. This story reminds us that compassion is powerful. That faith can carry us through the darkest nights. That we must look beyond the surface, because every smile may hide a struggle, and every tear may hold a story. And sometimes, one moment of kindness can become the bridge between despair and hope, between pain and healing, between fear and faith. So be gentle with others. Be patient. Be kind. Because you never know when your simple act of love might become someone's answered prayer.